All right, Congressman, it is good to see you, sir. I know that you needed a break from Washington, D.C., as all of our delegation did.
Oh, yeah. I want to start, if you don't mind.
Sure.
JT was such a great friend, and my prayers and heart is with his family, and we're going to miss him a ton. He was a great man.
It has been a surreal week. It really has, all the way up to the funeral, and we have to march on. And I know that he's got a better place to listen to this now. So
he doesn't have to deal with D.C. Man, I'm so glad to get out of that place for a little while and back home to where people are normal and don't live in that bubble. It's so good to be home.
You've been there for how many years now?
6.
Yeah, it's changed in 6 years, hasn't it?
It has. The last year has been the most toxic in the 6 that I've been up there. And you still got people on both sides who want to work, but it just seems like the real far left, the Cory Bushes and the AOCs, they're just driving this liberal, socialist, communist agenda, and nobody's putting the brakes on them. Of course, we're trying to.
Listen, I said once that I would love to see the Democrat Party get back to where the Democrat Party was 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. May not be good for Republicans, but it is good for the country because you're still fighting together for what is good for this country. And now we're not doing that.
Yeah, but they're having a hard time accomplishing anything right now in the House. They've got such a slim majority, and they're so divided. It's hard to govern. It's easy to throw bombs, but it's hard to govern, and they're finding that out.
I think when P-Day happens, it's almost like V-Day. As P-Day happens, we ought to celebrate in the streets. That's when Pelosi decides to hang it up or is defeated one way or the other.
Well, I hope we're going to help her with that in the midterms next year, and I think that's going to be a good way to put her out.
But here's what worries. Don't take that for granted. And I hope nobody's taking that for granted from the GOP head honchos up in at the main office all the way down to the grassroots. Don't take it for granted.
No, I actually was talking about that last night, and I talked to Tom Emmer, who's the NRCC chair all the time, and we talk about you got to run through the tape, and nothing's for granted, and you've got to finish every election until they quit voting at 7 o'clock p.m. The night of election. You've got to work hard.
It's tough having our delegation here because it's hard for me to blame anything on you. Because you just don't have any power, to be honest with you. And when I ask you, and you could probably do it on the right hand, what things have you guys put together as far as a bipartisan list that's made it all the way through? Well, and it's very difficult to. I know there are things, but are they that meaningful?
Yeah, well, I mean, the only thing that I've done, and it's meaningful to me, but I guess in the scope of everything, is I got to name a post office after Smitty Harris, Carlisle Harris, who is an amazing man, and was in a Harold Hilton for almost 8 years. One of the first guys shot down. I think he was number 6. But we're working on NDAA right now, and there's a lot of bipartisan stuff in that. And we passed the National Defense Authorization Act, and this will be, I think, the 62nd straight year that we passed that. And it funds our defense, but they've just cut the numbers so much. The Biden administration is wanting to do green stuff instead of support our troops that defend this nation.
Some of the stuff that's in the infrastructure bill itself, have you seen the package that's going to be presented?
I have not yet. I've heard of some of it. It's going to be difficult for me to support $1.1 trillion in spending. I'm not a spender. I like to cut that budget, and as long as it's on bridges and roads, but most of the stuff they're talking about is not on bridges and roads. It's on other things. Hopefully the one that comes out of the Senate will be palatable, but I don't think so right now.
I often wonder, because when we start thinking about some of the things, the 5G is where the government wants to fund a lot of this. The government wants to fund a lot of the electric stations, the refueling stations or recharging stations. And the Republicans' part of this is let the private sector do it. And that makes sense to me. Why do we have to do that?
Well, going back real quick, you asked about what we've done. The Ag Committee actually passed out a rural broadband bill that hopefully will pass the Senate, which will extend broadband to all our folks in the far reaches, which, now everybody needs to be connected. But, Lord, the Biden administration, they just don't make sense with a lot of the stuff they do.
Well, I listened to some of the things that he is saying, and I don't know what the progression rate is to oblivion, but he is fast on the way there. But here's one little shot this week.
Places that have offered the $100. That'd be really good. I'd go back and get vaccinated 3 times. But all kidding aside, offered the $100 to get vaccination, have seen an uptick of 25% in daily vaccination rates.
I got to tell you that one of the things that just maybe because I'm a baby boomer, but you go out there and you work and you do what you earn what you do. And to me, it's just counterproductive to say, look, you need to get this shot, and I'm going to pay you $100. Then somebody else is going to say, well, I'll get a shot. Where's my $100?
Or if you've already gotten it, it's kind of like
yes, that's right. I've already gotten it. Where's mine?
But talking back on the energy stations, you know, electricity has to be made. It's not electricity is not just a raw substance, and so it has to be made. And you still have coal or gas or nuclear, and they're not paying taxes like you pay a gasoline tax, which maintains our highways. But you're not paying that on these electric charging stations, so it sounds great, but it's not. I mean, there's nothing to fund the highways in.
It's happened over and over to us, and I sound like a dummy sometimes on the air mentioning this to people, but you kind of want to slap them and say, have you seen what's been going on with the light bulb, with the toilets, with the plastic bags, with the paper bags, with all of this difference? It never works out for them. It never works out. You got people like Walmart now saying we got to get rid of the plastic bags. They got rid of the paper bags. You got the light bulbs that are worthless. The toilet has to be flushed 15 times. You got these windmills that are. It's almost like medical marijuana in a way. They talk about all the great stuff, but they don't talk about the bad stuff.
They absolutely do not. And, everything in life is a trade-off. If you get something, you give something up to get it. And they don't understand. They think you just get stuff. But that's the way they spend money.
Congressman Trent Kelly is with me. Have you ever seen some of the numbers, Congressman Kelly, on what would happen if a majority of people in this country went to electric vehicles?
I have not, but I can imagine.
I've seen some of those, and the chaos it would put the economy, the overload. As a matter of fact, people charging their vehicles at night across America in large numbers would probably throw the whole grid out, and you would have blackouts, darkouts, and things like that at nighttime. It's just they have no idea what the consequences would be.
If we follow the Biden administration, we're heading quick to be a third world country.
Places that have offered the $100, that'd be really good. I'd go back and get vaccinated 3 times. But all kidding aside, offered the $100 to get vaccination, have seen an uptick of 25% in daily vaccination rates.
We got people now have to put him to bed and probably wake him up to